Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, Chapter 30, paragraph 20, the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Harwich Board of Health is being conducted via remote participants. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. I'm going to open the meeting and I'd like to make a roll call. Is Sharon here?
Yes.
Is Kevin here?
Yes.
Is Ron here? Ron, are you around? Is Matt here?
Someone's
Okay.
on as caller one. Can caller one just state who they are?
Hello, this is Patrick Otten, resident of Harwich.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. I'll change your name. So you do have a quorum, Pam.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to
So we have before the Board of Health new business for a public hearing for the town of Harwich fertilizer and nutrient control regulation. And Pam, you can read the public hearing notice.
the Harwich Board of Health will conduct a public hearing to solicit on the proposed town of Harwich fertilizer and nutrient control regulations. The hearing will be held on Friday, January 21st.
And could you please mute your phone?
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30, paragraph 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Harwich Board of Health is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for the order. The meeting will be broadcast live on Channel 18, and the public can submit comments, questions during the meeting via remote participation. Remote participation dial-in instructions will be on the posted agenda available on the Town of Harwich website. Comments, questions before the meeting can be submitted to the health@town.harwich.mass.us. The meeting begins at 1 p.m. and copies of the regulations may be obtained by emailing the Health Department or may be viewed at the Health Department website. I wanted to accept a motion to open the public hearing from the board.
I'll make a motion to open the public meeting.
Okay. Do
I
I hear?
will second that motion.
All right, so I'm going to take a roll call. Sharon, you're in agreement to open the meeting?
Yes.
Kevin, you're in agreement to open the meeting?
Yes.
And I'm in agreement to open the meeting. So the meeting is open. This is the time that we can accept all questions or comments from the public.
I can summarize the regulation if you'd like, Pam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course.
Okay. So this is a fertilizer and nutrient control regulation being proposed by the Board of Health as a regulation. This is in response to comprehensive wastewater management as well as the Mass Estuaries Project to reduce the risk from excessive loading of nutrients to water resources, because they can include detrimental effects on drinking water, and excuse me, by increasing concentrations of nitrates that can violate safe drinking water standards. Scientific literature demonstrates that a significant potential source of nutrient loading to water resources is from inappropriate and/or improper use of turf fertilizer. Studies have demonstrated that phosphorus from fertilizer can lead to eutrophication in freshwater ponds. The purpose of the regulation is to provide a regulatory framework that results in reducing the nutrient loading from the application of fertilizers. Consistent with this goal and based on the findings provided in Section 1, the Board of Health provides this regulation to achieve the following purposes. To ensure application of fertilizers shall be performed in a manner consistent with best management practices, which from time to time may undergo changes in response to scientific research. To provide a legal mechanism for enforcement against the inappropriate and/or improper use of fertilizer, to incorporate by reference the University of Massachusetts Extension's turf management best management practices as a primary standard for the content and application practices related to turf fertilizer, to provide a regulatory tool that will help Harwich to achieve compliance with the total daily maximum loads for the town's water resources prescribed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and to provide the standards that will allow reasonable use of fertilizers for the enhancement and maintenance of turf quality found in Section 6 of this regulation. And lastly, to help achieve the goals of the Harwich Wastewater Management Plan, the Cape-wide Fertilizer Management Plan, DCPC, and the Local Comprehensive Plan. That is the summary.
Okay, and any comments or questions from the public?
Looks like we have Sandy McClarty that has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you. My name's Clara McClarty. I don't know how to change that. But does this address golf courses at all? Or is it only residential?
This is town-wide. This includes anything in town.
I'm curious how the Cape Cod National Golf Course has a small bit of land that's in Harwich, but their address is Brewster. Does Harwich have any means of affecting the fertilization practices there?
This regulation basically mirrors Brewster's regulation, so they're already being regulated in the same manner.
Thank you. I have also prepared some comments just in support of adopting the bylaw. Should I bring that now?
Yes.
Thank you all for reconsidering this bylaw. I sent a letter out to the health department and other town entities about wastewater concerns that I have. And I was at the meeting last year when you discussed this and decided to focus more on education than a bylaw. And I just want to say that in addition to this bylaw, I hope we do more education. And there's a lot of resources out there like the Cape Cod Commission, the Association for the Preservation of Cape Cod, the Orleans Ponds Coalition. They have these great slogans like green ponds make green lawn. I mean, green lawns make green ponds. And I think that another element, which is why we're here today, is that we can put an actual dollar amount on the cost of fertilizing. It actually adds, you know, $1 million something to our sewer plan if we don't address fertilizer. And the credit is structured based on the assumption that if you do have this bylaw, you'll probably reduce by 25%. We could set a goal to do better than that because I've been a lifelong organic gardener and grow a lot of food, never ever use chemically manufactured fertilizer, but I use organic sources, and those can run off too. They aren't necessarily more harmless for eutrophication. But I believe that a lot of people don't have a good grasp of how the things work, of that, you know, dollar amounts are connected to our pollution. And I'm really excited about the possibility of planting buffer strips wherever there is a lawn sloping down towards a water body or even towards the road. All the time I take morning walks in the summer and I see irrigation systems where the irrigation has saturated the yard and it's running down into the little storm drains in the street. And if those people have fertilized recently, and you can tell that they probably do fertilize, that stuff, a certain amount of it is just like, we cleaned this water, we pumped this water out, we spray it on the lawn, it runs into the drain system and it goes right straight back into our groundwater. And so, you know, the education aspect, we could possibly achieve even more results than just a bylaw. So I just wanted to encourage the education also to go forward, and to say that we have to remember the less affluent community members, because the costs of wastewater treatment will disproportionately hurt them. And, you know, maybe more of the people who are really, it's really important to them to have a perfect lawn or to play golf on the waterfront. It may not be a devastating expense for them, our upcoming wastewater expenses, but it is a very big expense for some of the population that maybe, you know, younger families raising kids, people who are in the working class. And we can all do a part to keep our community more fair and equitable. And so the fertilizer plays into that too. And thank you for considering this today.
Thank you very much. Those were excellent points that you made. Any other public comments?
I did receive oh, go ahead, Patrick, you first.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, hello, this is Patrick Otten. I live in East Harwich. And first, I really want to thank the Board of Health for your awareness and movement on this issue. I think it's critically important for our environment. So I do support the nitrogen and fertilization regulations. You know, our current lawn care is a false economy. We're not looking at the long-term effects. It's an archaic ideal, the rolling grass lawns of non-native invasive species that may not survive yet without extensive watering and fertilization. Taking the initial steps to mitigate nitrogen with sewering, but that's only the first part of the solution. Can an equal amount of money be spent to change our lawn care habits? It's well documented that our coastal waters, estuaries, bays, and ponds are suffering, some with dangerous health effects. Natural landscapes do provide habitat, species, and pollinator protection. Manicured lawns do not, just the opposite. So what happens when our water usage restrictions apply due to drought? Do we continue as we are, or do we change our habits? I urge that, yes, we introduce controls on the amount of nitrogen in the environment. And I really appreciate that the Board of Health is taking this issue firsthand and taking the first steps to progress on this topic. So those are my brief comments. And again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sandy?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, I am Sandy McClarty, and I am in support of this bylaw, and want to thank you for your work on this to bring this forward. My comment is that I would consider this the low-hanging fruit. If you have any fruit trees, you always go for the easy ones first. And although fertilizer bylaw isn't going to solve all the problems, it's one of the easier things we can do to address the nitrogen overload in our estuaries and ponds, as others have said. And in conversation over the wastewater, some people criticize any fertilizer bylaw as, it's ineffective, or it doesn't address the whole issue. But from what I've seen, I know in the Pleasant Bay area, 10% of the problem comes from golf courses, and another 6% roughly comes from residences. So I understand we're not eliminating it 100% with this bylaw, but it is not insignificant, and it's one of the easier ways to address this nitrogen problem. So I would just want to leave that image in people's mind, the low-hanging fruit. Let's deal with some of the simpler, easier things to deal with right away. We shouldn't wait on that. And it'll also have, I think, an earlier effect on the embayment. So if you deal with say fertilizer that's right next to the embayment, it will reduce nitrogen within, months, maybe even a year, in a very short amount of time, versus if you sewer something a mile away. The studies in the MEP report show that nitrogen travels about 1 foot per day, and they have a line on their maps showing the 10-year line. So where we live on Pleasant Bay, 210 Pleasant Bay, any nitrogen we put in our soil will take over 10 years to get to the bay. And so my point is that the sewer is part of the attack against this nitrogen overload, is part of the solution. But keep in mind that any pipes we put in the ground today, by the time they get hooked up, could be a couple of years down the road. And then the mitigating factor might be 10 years down the road from that. So the improvement to the actual water body might be 10, 15 years down the road, whereas some of the land use measures that we can do, like fertilizer bylaws and runoff mitigation, could have an impact in the very near future. I don't want to put a number on it, but so low-hanging fruit, and we can affect change sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I do have a
Oh, sorry.
email that was sent in that has been requested to be read into the record. This email is from Robert and Mary Albus. Dear members of the Harwich Board of Health, we thank you for addressing this urgent issue. We wholeheartedly support this proposed action. When we moved to West Harwich in the 1990s, our neighborhood was mainly comprised of unfertilized Cape Cod lawns, and the Herring River near our house was free of algae. Over time, more and more lawns have come to be fertilized and otherwise treated, as indicated by the now ubiquitous small yard signs warning of recent spraying of pesticide and fertilizer application. The lawn of one property in our area is fertilized 6 times a year. This is just one lawn. There are many, many yards near and on the banks of Herring River watershed that proudly display green lawns. This potentially indicates a staggering number of fertilizer applications per year in just this one area of one small village in the town of Harwich. It cannot be a coincidence that algae is now frequently observed in the Herring River and its marshland. If this is so easily observable, one wonders and worries about how our groundwater is being affected. We are not able to take part in the remote meeting on Friday, January 22nd, so we respectfully ask that you read this email into the public record. Thank you, Robert and Mary Albus, 77 Smith Street, West Harwich.
Thank you for the email. Any other comments from the public? None? Okay. I accept the motion to close the public hearing from the board.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay. Second? Kevin, you're on mute.
Second that motion.
Thank you. So Sharon, you're in favor?
Yes.
Kevin, you're in favor?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. So the hearing for public meeting is closed. Any discussion from the board? None?
Just to, I know, I believe it was Claire and Sandy both touched on it, and I do agree that there's a lot more. I know I mentioned the education part of it, and I know we've all discussed the difficulties of actually getting it in people's hands, but I would love for that to be a part of everything ongoing and making sure that this information is readily available.
I think that's the goal, yeah.
I just have a question, and this is basically for Megan. Are we going to be sending this out to the landscapers that do work in Harwich, even if they are not located in Harwich?
I don't believe we have a list of those. We don't maintain a list of landscapers. They don't have to register with us or anything like that. So we'll make this as widely available and known to the public as possible. We can even do like a reverse 911 call in the next coming months or so, just so people are aware there's a new regulation. It's not often that we have one of those, so it's definitely something that requires a notice to the public. There'll be information in the newspapers. It'll be on our website, obviously, and all of the places that you can buy fertilizer will have a notice indicating there's a Harwich regulation. I just want to make sure everyone's aware this is a regulation and not a bylaw. A bylaw goes before town meeting and requires a vote of the residents, and this is a regulation passed by the Board of Health. So we'll educate through our website, linking to other websites, and we will develop a flyer that we're able to pass out at different functions when we're able to have functions again. But we'll do as much as we can to get the word out that this is in place.
Well, I think it's a good start.
Yes, yes.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, do I hear a motion to close the meeting?
Are we,
Yeah.
are we going to close the meeting, or we want to accept the,
Oh,
do we do that here?
I'm sorry, yes. That would be a good idea. That was the whole point, wasn't it? Okay, sorry. Do I hear a motion to accept the regulations?
I make a motion that we accept the regulations as presented.
I second the motion to accept the regulations.
Okay, so Sharon, you're in agreement to accept the regulations?
Yes.
And Kevin, you're in agreement to accept the regulations?
Yes.
I'm in agreement, so regulations have passed.
What is it has to be unanimous, Pam, so you just have to indicate your vote.
Oh, I thought, I'm in agreement with the regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That concludes your new business. Unless it has to do with fertilizer, you would need to adjourn now.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting?
I second that motion.
And I'm in agreement, so Sharon is in agreement, yes?
Yes.
And Kevin? In agreement? One more yes, Kevin.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I'm in agreement. Therefore, the meeting, the board meeting is closed.